As Omicron makes its rounds through Berlin schools, things just keep on happening in German politics. It's relentless. This week, the Greens pick new leaders so that Baerbock and Habeck can go to Moscow and Munchen and try to prevent war and climate disaster, and Habeck can change his mind about vaccine patents. Lemon and lime time.
Hello everyone, it's time for another Megan's Megacan. I'm Megan, I'm here in Berlin with ex-Berliner magazine and Konrad Werner. Hello!
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good, yeah. Berlin is also like a petri dish at the moment, isn't it?
Everyone's got corona.
Berlin is like
It's
the
not just
centre.
everyone, but it's like just everyone.
Would you like to know how many people have got corona? I can't-
Only once I have a drink in my hand, please.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. I came via Edeka today because I was coming from work, and they have quite a nice selection. So we've got quite nice ones. We've got
good.
the Jim Beam kind of fancy ones.
Very good.
So you can have a Jim Beam lime splash or Jim Beam iced tea lemon.
Ooh.
It's a difficult choice, isn't it? And it's
I
not
really
often I
don't know.
present you in a difficult choice in this way.
Yeah. Normally you know which one I'm going to pick.
I thought lime splash, but
Yeah, I think I'm going to go for the lime
yeah,
splash.
I think you really like the lime splash. I mean, the iced tea is also good.
Okay.
Here you go. And we can pretend it's summer because it's not. It's January. There's a constant refrain running through my head at the moment. It's like, is this long COVID or is it January? Why am I so tired?
Yeah, the whole of Berlin has got a long COVID of drizzle. Cheers.
Gross.
Yeah, it's been drizzling for about 3 weeks straight.
The first sip of the iced tea one, I will say, is a little unexpected, but it's very tea, which I like.
Oh, yeah.
How's your lime splash? Refreshing?
Yeah, there's. It doesn't taste like lime at first. I think
Yeah.
you've just got to let the lime grow on you in the back of your palate.
Okay.
But it's very
So,
nice.
everyone has coronavirus. Do you know who particularly has coronavirus? Or you wouldn't tell me this. What was the number in schools?
Oh, yeah, young people.
Oh,
Between-
they love giving each other coronavirus.
So apparently the incidence rate of 5 to 14-year-olds is now over 4,000.
Woo!
And the incidence rate in Neukölln, where you live, is...
We are smashing it. We're absolutely smashing it.
Well, you are on 2,240, but where I live, Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg's on 2,377. So slightly ahead of you.
Oh, it's a big kind of, it's the two at the top. I do just want to take a moment here. We're obviously trivializing this now. I don't know how else. I don't know if anyone else is doing this. Obviously, I'm still incredibly sad and exhausted with this pandemic. But
Yeah.
if I think about how I was responding to these numbers before, and I was like, oh God, this is devastating. And now, like, have I just reached the dark comedy stage of things?
You've reached the limits of your devastation.
That maybe one good way to put it.
So and for the first time, I think today, Germany is now on over 200,000 new infections. Last time we met, we were like quite surprised that it was just over 100,000, and now it's double that.
That is exponential growth, which Angie described to us in detail.
In detail.
When was that? The autumn of 2020. She explained exponential growth
The innocent
to her.
time of mid-pandemic.
And we have done just demonstrated exponential growth ever since she explained to us patiently what it was in a plea for us to save our own lives.
But the good news is a lot more people are getting vaccinated now.
Oh, really?
Well, it's like about 500,000 new vaccinations are squirted into people every day. It's like
Oh, that's
500,000
good.
at the moment, its daily rate, according to this. And 73.7% are fully vaccinated.
That's not bad. It's been crawling up there.
Anyway, so there's that.
There's that.
How's it going in the world of
It's
education?
absolutely batshit bonkers crazy, because on Tuesday you'll be pleased to hear that I'm not going to be complaining about Sandra Schieres anymore as the education secretary or senator for Berlin, but only because she's been replaced by Astrid Sabina Busse, who I've already come across before in the whole should we allow people who wear a headscarf to teach our children debate. She and I are not of the same opinion, shall we say. She's very much for the banning of the Kopftuch in classrooms.
Okay. And she's SPD, yeah?
Oh, aye. And she decided on Tuesday, somewhat surprisingly, so because of these numbers, the Gesundheitsämter have basically just been like, we can't help the schools anymore. You have to do your own contact tracing. They're not sending kids into quarantine anymore. Even the people, so we had to do a whole like sits plan and try and make the kids sit in their seats because we don't want other people to get infected, you know, so we didn't have to send the whole class into quarantine. So then it was just the sits partner. Now it's a little bit unclear. And basically the schools have been left to do all of this. Parents are unclear, schools are unclear, everyone's unclear on what we're supposed to be doing. So what they decided to do on Tuesday, unbelievably, was to just say, okay, well, parents can now decide whether to send their kids to school or not.
Okay.
On a day-to-day basis from now until the end of February. So you can imagine how that is playing out.
How is that playing out? So people are just not coming in?
Kids coming in, they're choosing what lessons they like, what they don't.
Okay.
It's wild. I think it depends on the school. And it also depends, and I was reading an article about it today, like it's been heavily criticized from the Verband, the Head Teachers Association, Kinderhilfe, the charity, because they were just like, this means that kids from, and it's the winter ferie, it's the winter holidays next week. A lot of my kids were openly saying, we don't want to get sick for our ski trip, which is also fair enough. Like, I understand that, but I understand it's a difficult situation. I think this was an insane decision, and it has created chaos for everyone. And it is so disruptive to kids learning because the kids at home are not in school and the kids in school are just like 6 of them sitting there being like, what are we doing?
And the ones that are at home, do they have to go on Zoom?
There is no legal requirement for teachers to, because they can't make us do both. So it kind of depends on the school. We're muddling along as best we can, I suppose, but it's difficult. And I don't think this is the solution. I think this was a panicked.
Well, they want to make a compromise, I guess. They were trying to please everyone.
But I think I was thinking about this in the train, like, that's a super weird precedent to send at this stage of the pandemic when things are supposed to be, when we have daily testing, we have all these things, we have all this knowledge and vaccines and everything, to say, you now get to decide whether your kid comes to school or not, because you're splitting them. It's not, okay, everyone now has to participate in some way at home, and you can because previously it was like if you had special conditions or something, the school would kind of give you a, you know, even when they said no, you have to come to school, you could kind of work it out. But now it's just like you get to decide. I just see this widening the gap between various different groups of parents who are going to take their kids off on an extended holiday and parents who are going to just let their kids do whatever because they're not really engaged within the school system. So those kids are going to get even more distance. And then the other kids are going in to try and do stuff. Then anyway, sorry. Yes, that's terrible. Let's talk about something else. It's nearly the holidays. It's all going to be fine.
Okay. Well, I wanted to tell you something a little bit because I know that we always talk about the CDU.
We really do. We don't have to anymore.
I know.
They're gone.
But still, we keep talking about them. But anyway, so we're going to talk about the Greens today.
Woo!
Because the Greens are quite an interesting place at the moment, partly because they have a party conference happening tomorrow, this weekend. Is it in person or is it on Zoom? Do you know? It's on Zoom. Yeah, which makes a big difference, actually, to a party conference, because it means that there's the members, like normally in a party conference, if you ever go to one, it's like a chance for the grassroots and the local organisations to go to the leaders saying, hang on, we don't agree, when they kind of start shouting.
Annalena, come here. Just come here to me.
Yeah.
Just 1 second.
And there's a bit more like, you know, they can bring in motions, like if they get enough support, like the local party can say, what if we want to like legalize heroin or something, you know? Like they can bring in like radical ideas, and then the party discusses it, whether it's going to be a policy. And that doesn't necessarily happen as much for the digital
No, it must be hard because you don't get a couple of days of all hanging around the bar.
It's like a big hall, and then there's
and people
social
chat
things in the meetings, and then there's meetings behind the scenes, and then there's like a
pandemic. I mean, this
so,
might be stating the obvious, but we could do with this being done.
So obviously it's really good for party leaderships when it's all a digital conference, because then they just get to make the speech. They don't even know how many people in the room agree with them or not, because they can't hear the people applauding.
Nor
or
can
not.
you kind of feel the atmosphere in the room or how things are landing.
Yeah. So, which is nice for the leadership because they're never really challenged. Anyway, so Green Party, what they're going to do is elect new leaders. And the interesting thing about the Green Party is that they have a rule saying that if they are in political office, like if a party member is in political office, they're not allowed to be party leader.
Okay.
Which is very unusual if you think about it. Like Angela Merkel the CDU makes a big deal about unifying those two offices. So Angela Merkel was party leader up until 2018 when she said, I don't want to run in the next election. So they picked a new leader to sort of, didn't really work out the way they wanted it to, but they picked a new leader so that they would like take over from Merkel in the future.
Yeah,
So
I think that is
Greens,
interesting.
Yeah, and the Greens, because they have like they're a little bit more radical, and they were founded in the 80s, and they have like they have this sort of idealistic rule which says if you can't be party leader and be in political office, which means that Robert Habeck and Annalena Baerbock, who are the current co-leaders of the party, they have to be replaced. And so that is going to happen this week, and they're being replaced by a guy called Omid Nuripur and a woman called Ricarda Lang. That's because they also have a rule saying it has to be one man and one woman.
Yeah.
This is quite an interesting choice because Omid Nuripur is of Iranian descent. He's very much a pragmatist. So the Greens have like these two wings. It's the Realos. They say the Realos and the Fundis. Would you like to know what they mean?
That's the most Green Party thing, like German Green Party thing I've ever heard. I'm assuming the Realos are your pragmatists. They're like, okay, yeah, but at some point we're going to have to get Linda to sign off on this. So,
yeah.
And then the Fundis are like, no, I will die on the hill of atomic energy being the devil. And yeah.
So they're like the fundamentalists, is what the Fundis are, and the
Fundis.
Realos are the...
It's quite a cute way of saying fundamentalist, which is definitely like a negatively connotated word.
Whereas Annalena Baerbock and Robert Habeck were basically both Realos, and both very ambitious, and they both wanted the party to get into power. Now they've picked one Realo and one Fundi.
I was going to ask how many of the Fundis ever get into the top spots. So that's interesting.
Yeah, so that's what they normally do. And they didn't do it last time because they wanted to, because they liked Habeck and Baerbock. But they did it this time. So Nuripur is the Realo one. He's been in the parliament since 2006. So he's pretty established in the party. He's a foreign policy expert. He's a member of this will interest you, he's a member of the Atlantic Brücke, which is an organization of business,
very nervous,
of political and business leaders and cultural leaders and scientific leaders. There's like 500 of them who foster US-German relations. He did a face then. Guess who else is in the Atlantic Brücke?
Is it Linda?
No. Who else don't we like?
I mean, who do we like? Söder?
No.
Seehofer.
The other one.
What other one? Oh, fucking Merz.
Yeah. Friedrich Merz is also a member of the Atlantic
Yeah,
Brücke.
that sounds like terrifying boomer bullshit.
It's a kind of it's a sort of like elitist group. They all kind of meet up, and they're all kind of business leaders, and they want to
do their stuff and line each other's pockets, and they can. Well, okay, I am speaking without the full facts here.
Anyway, so Omid Nuripur is also in this group, but he's very popular, and he won his seat outright in Frankfurt. Which was a big deal because Frankfurt is like the business capital of Germany, and I don't know, it's like it's interesting that he won that seat directly, when it's the first time that seat was won directly by the Green Party. And the other leader is going to be Ricarda Lang, who is 28 years old, and she is like the feminist of the Green Party. She's the women's policy spokeswoman. Yeah, she's very much in the kind of left-wing part of the Green Party, quite radical. Used to work in a women's home, and she's very, I think you would get on, basically. I think.
Good. For shame, I haven't heard of either of these people, but I look forward to what they got on with. And I think that is an interesting thing of once you go into a political office, you are no longer representing just your party. And I think that kind of works. I don't know. I probably don't know enough about it to say, but I know that I get very frustrated with, so for instance, in Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster at the time of Brexit was really pushing her sort of party line of Brexit, Brexit, Brexit. But I was like, but you're the first minister of a country that did not vote for Brexit and have been quite, we did, Northern Ireland didn't, and I just remember being like, there's a blurring of those lines between, do you represent the party line, or once you become, you've now been voted as the first minister, so you should go with the mandate given to you. What is your mandate for not being, for being so pro Brexit now that you are not just the leader of your party, but actually representing all people in your country?
That's a very good point. And that's, I guess that's why the Green Party does this, so that there's no, it doesn't, there's a clear division.
Yeah, and like you go and you argue your ideological points and everything, of course, but at the end of the day, Habeck and Baerbock, their mandate now is to deliver on this coalition that kind of everyone agreed, and
Yeah, exactly. And they're kind of freed from having to please their party, membership. But in practice, it can be complicated.
Yeah.
Especially in this situation, because it depends on how assertive these two new party leaders are going to be. Like, are they going to be mixing it up because they're both in the Bundestag? And are they going to be mixing it up and openly criticizing the government?
Yeah.
If they don't agree with them? Or what is more likely is, are they going to be consider themselves more like party managers, which means that they basically have to, well, as one person I spoke to today said, that are they going to be like the press spokespeople for the government representatives? Strategically, do they want to have two centres of power? Or are they, because Habeck and Baerbock will be the more powerful? Or are we looking
at a middle management situation, which is never good? Yeah. Can you just communicate this to your teams? No, I fucking can't, because no one wants to hear that.
Yeah. So that is happening this weekend. They're going to be, Ricarda Lang and Omid Nouripo are going to be elected this weekend as Green Party leaders, and then we shall see what happens. So do you want to know
that's the new people. That's going to be the replacement as the party leaders. What have Robert and Annalena been up to? What are their adventures?
Well, hopefully we won't have to, you're not going to ask me to explain the Russia situation. But
I hope not, because I have not been following it. And I've basically...
There might be a war.
Been asking my lovely current flatmate, Daniel, to explain things to me. And he's like, good. It's just Russia being a dick. I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Is he still being a dick? Yeah. But other than that, got nothing.
So Annalena Baerbock went to Moscow.
Mm-hmm. Annalena goes to Moscow.
And Kiev. And
Kiev.
People were a little bit worried about, how it would be. Like, the people were not expecting very much of her because they're very critical of her anyway.
Will her boobs get in the way? Or the fact that she's so young mean that she will just... I don't know, end up starting a war. Who can tell?
Yeah.
Who can tell? How did she get on?
And she was facing Sergei Lavrov, who has been Russian foreign minister since 2004. Like, he's just seen it all, and everyone's like, oh. And how's this going to go? And anyway, and it's in the middle of a crisis situation where Russia seems to be escalating on the Ukrainian border. I mean, like the press, the German press was like, oh, she did really well. In a slightly patronizing way.
Yes.
But they were sort of like, she seemed really well prepared. She was, assertive and confident. She didn't try and provoke him, but she also made the positions clear, everything like that. So people were like, okay, she did pretty well. Mm-hmm. But what actually came out of it, we'll have to see, So Germany's position in all this is they're the contact person in NATO for Russia. They're the country that Germany's the country that Russia feels closest to in NATO and feels like it can communicate with. Is the country where there's the most cultural and economic exchange, especially because of Nord Stream and all that. I was
going to say Nord Stream 2 is really playing into this, isn't it?
It's always going to be, they're always going to be slightly friendlier than if, Russia meets up with Boris Johnson or something. It's going to be like there's a much more dependence.
Boris Johnson,
there's much more economic dependence between Russia and Germany. So that's Annalena Baerbock
acquitted herself.
She acquitted herself very well. Yeah, so
good.
That was good.
Well done. A win for a womankind.
But there was a bit of a controversy about. Did you hear about these 5,000 helmets?
I did not.
Okay. There's a big debate about whether Germany should export arms to Ukraine.
Yes, I've been following this a little.
The Green Party has like a principle, and the German government also has a principle that they're not supposed to export weapons into a conflict zone, which is kind of, if you ask me, is kind of counterproductive, because where else do they need weapons, you know? But anyway, that's the point.
Oh my God, what a fucking double-think position. We're not going to export arms into things. Who knows what they're going to do with them?
Yeah,
but there's not a conflict currently. Dear.
Like, there's not many, like, Norway is not going to buy many tanks, you know? The country that needs tanks. But anyway, that's another thing that I have a big problem with. But
yes, but apparently that's why we've decided to set the world up. So it's all fine.
So Germany has this sort of, theoretically has this rule. In fact, apparently there were some stories about Germany blocking, through the EU, blocking arms sales from Estonia, for example, to Ukraine. But like, as a compromise, because there was so much international pressure and everyone says Germany has to do something, they sent like protective gear to Ukraine this week. So they sent 5,000 helmets, and everyone was taking the piss on Twitter about how this is ridiculous. Like, you know, they've got like an army of 300. It's not
to be clear, my squeamishness about like arms dealing is not saying
but it was like
Ukraine should not be supported, but they probably need more than 5,000 helmets.
Yeah, so it's like Germany's a very awkward situation generally. So
they are in a super awkward situation.
So
so that's Annalena went to
and then
Moscow, and the sequel to that went to Kiev.
Yeah, and then Robert Habeck, meanwhile, had his own diplomatic adventure.
Robbie goes to
Bavaria.
Oh.
He had to go to Munchen and had talked to our old friend Markus Söder of the CSU.
I did see a brief headline about this, which was something to do with Robert Habeck having to go to Bavaria to talk to Markus Söder to try and change his mind about wind energy.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot for me to pity politicians in their jobs in this moment of pandemic hell.
Yeah.
And what they've sort of put on us as teachers. But I was like, oh, fuck me, Robert, you poor bastard.
But this is what the next 4 years are going to be like with the Green Party in government. Because the Green Party has put a lot of things in the coalition contract because they want to, you know, reduce carbon emissions and make. They've got this plan to make
those crazy idealists.
Yeah. And then so they've put all this stuff in, and then they have to actually do it. Mm-hmm. And they're almost certainly not going to be able to do all the things they want to do in the next 4 years. Like, everyone agrees, it's just like, politically, it's just going to be really, really difficult, even though it's less than what we should be doing anyway. But one of the things in the coalition contract is that 2% of Germany's territory is going to be turned into wind farms. Mm-hmm. That's quite a lot.
That's a lot.
And
if anyone's been watching the IMF percentages creep up, I know it's a different measure of thing, but Germany is fucking massive.
Yeah.
2% of anything in Germany is huge. That's why Megacans are so brilliant, because they're 10% in Germany, and that's a lot.
As long as we're talking percentages.
How is your Mega?
Oh, I'm loving it.
This is delicious. It genuinely tastes like iced tea, lemon iced tea.
It feels
with Jim Beam. It's so good.
I feel like I'm on the beach in Cancun.
This is what I was hoping to think. It's not Berlin in the rain and cold and horror. I'm sitting on my porch in South Carolina, and it's delightful.
Yeah.
It's not the bug season. Do they have a bug season? I don't know. But it's not that season. It's iced tea and Jim Beam.
Yeah, they drink in the southern states of the United States, they drink out of these metal cups.
Yeah, that's traditional mint julep cup.
Mint julep
and
cup.
Once again, not for the first time, if anyone from the Megacan industry is listening, first of all, sponsorship. Second of all, mint julep Megacan. I have been saying this for years.
Yeah. You're the lobby group for mint juleps. I
should just be the lobby group. Like, we're never going to get sponsorship from anyone else. The German, no Stiftung is going to give us any money because we're A, inaccurate, and B, sloppy, and C, horrible to everybody.
And slightly drunk.
Also, that's the least of our sins. So no one's going to fund us that way. We need the Megacan sponsorship.
Yeah.
Anyway, so
2%.
Robbie gets on the train and he's like, Right, 2%.
So-
We need to cover that with wind farms.
And the thing is, Bavaria is one of the biggest states in Germany.
Yeah,
So quite a lot of this 2% is going to have to be in Germany.
Bavaria.
Bavaria. Yeah, good.
Don't worry, there's two of
Right,
us
you're
here.
keeping up. I was obsessing. But Bavaria has a rule about wind farms, which is that the nearest windmill, windmills
gonna
have to be.
Hard for you to explain this far into Megacan.
So they made a rule in 2014, said that the windmills are only allowed to be 2 kilometers from the nearest home. That's just a home, like any place,
Yeah.
not a village or a town.
Yeah.
Any place in the middle of the countryside where anyone lives, the nearest windmill is only allowed to be 2 kilometers away. And they calculated this with what they call the 10 times rule. So according to the experts, a windmill is 200 meters high. Mm-hmm. And it has to be 10 times the height of the windmill is to be the closest that a windmill can be to a home. And Robert Habeck went over to Markus Söder and said, look, you've got to change this rule because we're not going to be able to hit our targets. And they did a joint press conference and they were both really nice to each other and very diplomatic. But basically, Markus Söder said, thanks for coming, but we'll think about it. And that is probably what is going to happen with a lot of Green Party politics in the next 4 years. It's like, we'll think about it and we'll have to talk. And in a way, it was kind of good that he did it, that they went over there because, in fact, what the federal government could do, because as we learned with the rent cap, federal law trumps state law if there's a conflict. So what the federal government could do is bring in a law saying you've got to put wind farms here and here and here, and you'll just have to do it. And so Habeck took like the more diplomatic approach, and I think Söder appreciated that.
Okay. Well, hopefully Söder is listening and he realizes that Habeck can just come down with a big law and be like, Marcus, get out there, build some wind farms. And it's going to be embarrassing for Söder. And if there's one thing we know about white male politicians, they don't like to be embarrassed. Well, I'm generalizing there, but in general, there's a lot of thing about like shame, losing face. That's also the patriarchy's fault. Söder's a victim of the patriarchy as much as the rest of us. Not really, but sort of.
Yeah.
And Söder will be like, all right, he came down, he said, and he'll agree or change the rules. That's what we're hoping.
Yeah, I mean, he said, he was just sort of like, I appreciate that you came here, and I realised that this is what it says in the coalition contracts, and we'll think about it here down in Munich.
Good.
This is what they said. Yeah, so there's going to be a lot of things like that, I think, in the next few years. How long have we been talking for?
God knows, you've got the computer.
Okay, good. Did we have anything else to discuss?
No, I don't think so. We've gone through my list. We've been very organised.
Okay, good. Well, then maybe we could just stop then.
We could. Or I've still got quite a lot of my Maggie. You've probably slaked yours down ages ago.
Yeah, I'm kind of a fast drinker.
I find that we always then have something quite technical to talk about in like the third or fourth quarter of the podcast. You're like, 200 meters times 10 is Marcus Söder. I think you did very, very brilliantly well.
Well, there was another controversy, was the Baugenehmigungsstopp.
Oh, God.
No, that's what I wanted to talk about.
What? Yeah. It's not on my list.
Going back to COVID,
oh, God, sorry, that is on my list and we've forgotten about it.
Vaccine patents.
That's what we needed to talk about.
Yeah. So.
We can either edit that bit out or we'll keep it in to make us seem real.
Well, if people have listened this far, I always reason they're going to listen to the end anyway.
Yeah.
So
you've stuck it out this long. Much like the pandemic. We might as well just keep fucking going.
Yeah. So, in May 2021, which wasn't that long ago, Robert Habeck was still in opposition. Mm-hmm. And he came out in favour of waiving vaccine patents.
Yeah.
Which was a very big issue at the time. It's still a very big issue.
Yeah.
And Now he is German economy minister, which is a very different role. And he was asked this week in a press conference by the very good journalist Thilo Jung.
I like Thilo Jung.
Yeah, so he asked him in this press conference, what, do you still think that now? And Robert Habeck said, well, after speaking intensively with the pharma corporations, I have changed my mind. And he says that he thinks it wouldn't necessarily increase the production of vaccines if they just freed all the vaccine patents, which is not necessarily true, because there was a study.
But Conrad, he's spoken to the big pharma, and they've said that. Did he speak to anybody else?
Well, that's what a German economy minister does. He talks to German companies. I mean, that's their job. They have to
Yes, but you can also speak to other people.
Yeah, I mean, there are other people in the world to talk to and to ask.
And what are they saying?
Well, according to a study that was done somewhere or other, I'm looking at a USA Today article, which I will post underneath this when I put it on Facebook. There are at least 120 companies around the world that are ready to go to produce, that have all the resources to produce vaccines whenever they want if they had the patents. And because Robert Habeck's argument was that, it's too difficult, it would take too much training, they would have to build all these factories, it would take too long, and it wouldn't necessarily help, which is not necessarily true according to this study in USA Today.
And we don't necessarily know that, but I think also it's helpful to look at, like, what do we know about the world? We know that capitalism is, like, insidious, and we know that we also have, like, white supremacy and global North supremacy, and people having this idea of, like, well, it would take too long to build up the training of people there and the building of the factories. And you're like, that just doesn't, that can't be true. And that's what that study is saying. Like, there's 120 companies in the global south who are like, oh no, we can do it.
Yeah.
But yet we're not hearing those voices. Like, if Habeck I'm willing to be convinced if he'd, like, we've looked at that study, we've talked to them, and we got so-and-so at that company and this company at a table, and they were like, oh, actually, that's not going to work. But that's not what we're doing. We're just talking to big pharma, and they're being like, meh, it would be difficult.
Yeah, it would be too hard.
And that might not necessarily be completely in bad faith, but I think everything that we do in the global North is so often rooted in this idea that we have to save the global South because they can't help themselves. And that's just, it takes a lot to unpick that, and it's bullshit. And we should probably just give it a go with those 120 companies and be like, all right, sweet.
I mean, it can't hurt, can it, is the point? It
No.
definitely can't hurt to free the patents.
But where might it hurt?
Well, it will hurt if you happen to run Pfizer.
Yeah. But not hurt you in the soul, not make you sick, not make you die of COVID,
No.
not make you have to say goodbye to your grandmother over Zoom. It won't make you do any of those things. It just might mean that you don't make as much bonus. So let's give it a go. And if it's terrible, then fine.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You can come on to Megacan. I will buy you a Megacan and you can fucking berate me for 40 minutes.
Excellent. And I'm particularly pleased that I actually got that number right. It is 120.
You've done very well on the figures this
I was
evening, because
slightly
we
guessing.
fact-checked all of them. You really did.
I did
I know I
actually
make
have
jokes
the-
about us being
Well,
inaccurate. It's not actually true. It's only inaccurate when I take a segment.
And it was true about the 200 meters as well, over the height of the windmill. So I think we should quit while we're ahead.
Absolutely. I'm
And
glad you
stop
enjoyed
talking
your Megacan. Oh, it's a Noya mix for the Jim
really?
Beam iced tea. They have even made it more delicious, I think.
Yeah, I'm very much enjoying this conversation. And
I love coming here and drinking a Megacan and talking to you about this. Like, I really, really do. It's so fun. We hope you enjoyed it too.
yeah.
Take care of yourself. If you've got coronavirus, I hope it's not too bad, and make sure you get people to drop you off some food. And if you don't have coronavirus, congratulations. Maybe start getting weirdly paranoid about why it hasn't come from you yet. What's going on there? What's the plan for you?
Yeah.
If this is the beginning of some kind of Netflix sci-fi series.
Maybe you're chosen.
Yes, exactly.
You're a chosen one. Great. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.